When your life is consumed by anxiety, it can be easy to resign yourself to the thought that you'll always feel this way. But I'm here to tell you that small, consistent habits can make a huge difference. If you're looking for practical ways to manage your anxiety and improve your mental health, then you are in the right place. A few years ago, I decided to start being more proactive about working on my anxiety instead of just resigning myself to it. And in this video, I want to share with you some of the self-care habits that have helped me manage my anxiety and improve my overall mental health. So, funny story, I almost scrapped this entire video and I had to use some of the habits that I'm about to share with you to finish it. I filmed the whole thing and I was like halfway through editing it, and then I just started overthinking everything and doubting it, had a little bit of self-doubt. That's kind of how anxiety shows up for me. I tend to way overthink things. Obviously, I finished the video, so I will come back to that story later to tell you how I did it. But the first habit that I want to share with you has been the most effective way for me to manage that overthinking part of myself, and that is journaling. I've been journaling every morning for over a year now, and when I first started, I had no idea that it was going to become such a valuable tool in my mental health toolkit. Journaling forces me to slow down and process my thoughts because the act of writing is slower than the act of thinking, at least for me. So things that feel really big and overwhelming in my head a lot of times seem a lot less significant when I see them objectively written down on paper. So I journal every morning, and then if there's ever a time throughout the day where I'm feeling like really anxious or panicky, or if I'm having trouble like thinking through something, then I'll grab my journal and just start writing until I feel like I've found clarity. Throughout this video, I also want to share with you some ways to incorporate these habits into your life. So with journaling, the way I started this habit is I would time box it. At first, I think I was time boxing it to 10 minutes. All I need to do is just sit down and write for 10 minutes. That's it. It's really easy. So the first tip that I have for you is to make the habit as easy as possible. Once you have momentum and it's more of a habit, then you can kind of revisit some of those limitations that you set in the beginning. So now I don't really time box it. I just kind of write until I feel satisfied. Let's move over to the couch. So journaling has been really helpful for me to work through my thoughts and emotions. But in talking to others, I've found that this isn't the case for everyone. Everyone's brain is different, so each of our mental health toolkits will be unique to us. My next self-care habit is to go on daily walks. Walking is a great way for me to get out of my head and clear my mind. I work at my computer all day, and so stepping away to go for a walk around the neighborhood is a nice way to get out of the house, get some fresh air, stretch out my limbs, and just give my brain a break. I usually listen to a podcast or an audiobook while I'm on my walks, so that makes it more of a fun activity and like something that I look forward to. Studies have shown that walking in green spaces, such as nature-based environments or forest areas, tends to have a greater positive impact on people's mental health compared to walking in non-green spaces, such as urban areas or city streets. I live on a busy street, but I found an area in my neighborhood that gets less traffic and is slightly more green in the form of people's front yards, and I can definitely notice a difference when I go for a walk there versus on the busy street with all the traffic and the noise. I think the key with this habit, and with all habits really, is to adapt it to work for your life and your schedule, and to let go of the all or nothing mindset. My walks are usually around 30 minutes, but if you can only get in 10 minutes a day of walking, then that's better than nothing. I work from home right now, but even back when I would work in an office, I would go to a park on my lunch breaks, and I would go for a quick walk around the park after I ate my lunch. Along the same lines as daily walks is exercise. I do a combination of cardio and strength training workouts throughout the week, and I do it mainly because I know how important it is for my health. But I do get a mood boost from it as well. I actually used to be really skeptical when I heard people say that exercise gives you a mood boost, or when they would talk about like that runner's high, you know, that you get this euphoric feeling once you've been working out for a prolonged period of time. I have never once felt good during a workout. Working out sucks, especially cardio. But after the workout is over, that's when I feel a sense of accomplishment. Like, I did that. I just did that hard workout. That workout was really hard while I was doing it, and I still did it. It kind of builds a sense of resiliency in you. And also, after I do a workout, I feel so calm and relaxed for the rest of the day, especially if it's like a high intensity cardio workout. It's like my heart pumped so hard during that workout that it's just like taking it easy for the rest of the day. Also, there's all kinds of other health benefits and like cognitive benefits that you get from working out. A tip for starting this habit of working out, I think it's really important to find a cardio exercise that you really enjoy, because cardio sucks and it's going to be really hard to convince yourself to do it when you're doing something boring every time. So for example, my favorite way to get exercise at the moment is dance workouts on my mini trampoline. It is so fun to dance on a trampoline, and the enjoyment that I get from that distracts me from the discomfort of the cardio workout. Even so, working out is never something that I want to do, so I make it as easy as possible on myself by working out from home. So there's no friction from having to get ready and drive to the gym and come back. Like I said before, a good tip for starting any new habit is to make it as easy as possible on yourself and reduce the amount of friction that it takes to do the habit as much as possible. Let's move to a new location. Okay, my next self-care habit is to practice mindfulness meditation. I'd always heard about the benefits of meditation for people with anxiety, but at first it didn't really seem to be working for me, probably because I thought the goal of meditation was to relax and clear your mind. But actually the goal is to become aware of your own thoughts, basically to learn how to control your own mind. So the way it has helped me manage my anxiety is that in everyday life, when I start to go into my overthinking, rumination spirals, I'm getting better and better at catching myself and pulling myself out of it before I go too far. Over the last 7 weeks, I have been taking an online mindfulness meditation course, which has been helping me a lot with managing my anxiety and my emotions. If you're interested at all, I'm going to leave a link to that class in the description below. Highly recommend it. But when I first started meditating, I would just do a quick 10-minute meditation every morning after I woke up. I would just sit up and do it right there in bed, because again, make it as easy as possible on yourself when you're trying to start a new habit. Around that time, I was also trying to break the bad habit of opening up my phone immediately after I woke up to check social media. So I replaced that habit with meditating. Scrolling Instagram in the morning gave me something to kind of ease the transition from sleep to being awake, and meditating in bed like that served the same purpose basically, so it was an easy swap. That's another tip for starting a new habit, is to do it in place of a bad habit that you want to stop doing. And that leads me to my next self-care habit, which is to limit your time on social media. So I guess it's not really a habit, it's more of kicking the habit of social media. I used to spend a decent chunk of time on social media every day without fully realizing it at the time, because I would tell myself I'm just gonna open the app real quick and check for replies, but then I would end up scrolling for like 10 or 20 minutes, and I would do that multiple times a day, and all of that adds up. And it's not like I was getting any benefits from this time spent on social media. In fact, quite the opposite. When I'm scrolling social media, I always end up comparing myself to others, which is terrible for my self-esteem and tends to make me feel like I'm not doing enough with my life. Also, these apps were designed to be addictive. Each piece of content that you see that is mildly interesting to you releases a little bit of dopamine in your brain, and the endless scrolling design used by these social media apps makes you want to keep searching for more new, interesting content to keep getting those rewards, those little hits of dopamine. I think there are some benefits to social media, obviously the social connection and keeping in touch with people, but more and more it feels like social media is moving away from that and more towards a content machine to provide never-ending mindless entertainment, so you stay on the apps as long as possible. So to try to curb this habit, I started using this app called 1sec, which has drastically helped. I think there are other apps like this. Basically, anytime you try to open Instagram or whatever social media app of choice, it shows a screen that forces you to stop and breathe and reconsider whether you actually want to open the app. Also, I recently did a whole week of no content consumption, including social media, but also other types of content like watching TV and podcast and all that kind of stuff. I actually made a whole video about my week of no content consumption and all of my insights from it. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you check that video out next. Ever since that week, I've kind of not had the urge to go on social media as much. I feel like it was kind of like quitting the habit cold turkey. Like I just got it all out of my system, and then afterwards I didn't have that urge anymore. Like it wasn't there. We'll see how long that lasts. The urge might come back. While we're talking about things that we want to limit, I've also learned that I need to limit my caffeine and alcohol intake. When I drink either of these substances in excess, my mental health in addition to my physical health suffers. After a night of drinking, most people will get a hangover, right? Well, I also get something called anxiety, which is a term that I only recently learned about. I used to call it a shame-over. Anxiety is basically intense feelings of anxiety, shame, self-doubt, etc., that some people get after a night of drinking, and it is particularly bad in people who already suffer from social anxiety, such as me. Apparently, this happens to 12% of people who drink alcohol. I had no idea. I thought I was the only one. And the reason it happens is because of the chemical effects that alcohol has on the brain. Alcohol affects neurotransmitters in your brain, which make you feel less inhibited and more relaxed, which is why you might find it easier to talk freely when you're drinking as compared to when you're sober, which is also why a lot of people with social anxiety tend to use alcohol as a crutch in social situations. But then the next morning, after your body has processed the alcohol, your brain tries to rebalance those neurotransmitters in your head, and that can lead to intense feelings of anxiety. As for caffeine, I am very sensitive to it. I can sometimes feel overcaffeinated after just 1 cup of coffee. And I've learned that caffeine heightens my anxiety because it makes my thoughts go even faster than normal, which just amplifies my overthinking. On top of the physical sensations of feeling jittery and just like physically unwell. These substances are obviously very specific to me, but the key takeaway here is to listen to your body and figure out if there's anything you're consuming that is doing more harm than good. So as I mentioned before, I almost scrapped this whole video. I was originally going to do a more general 10 self-care habits that work for me. So I filmed it and got through half of the editing before I started really overthinking it and doubting everything. Sometimes when I'm overthinking like that or feeling like a surge of anxiety, if I can't work through it by journaling, the best way to snap myself out of it is by talking through my thoughts with a trusted friend or my partner, or when I was in therapy, I would talk through things with my therapist. Having an external perspective really helps to ground me and take me out of my spiraling thoughts. And that's what I did when I wanted to scrap this video. I talked through it with a trusted friend who helped me sort through my thoughts. And then after our call, I journaled on it for a bit. That was habit number 1. And that led me to reshape the whole video into one that felt more authentic to me. I have a lot of thoughts on this habit because as someone who has suffered from social anxiety and still does, it can be hard to talk to people and to open up to people and to find people that I trust. I won't lie and say that I've always felt like I had someone to talk to. Even though now looking back on it, I can see that I did. It just didn't feel like that at the time. If you feel like that's you at the moment, I would suggest that you look into finding a therapist. Therapy was really helpful for me. It was a huge part of my personal growth journey. I used to think therapy was really, really expensive and out of my price range, and it can be expensive. It's much more manageable if you have health insurance that covers it. At least if you're in the US. I don't know how it is anywhere else. So the first step in finding a therapist is actually to make sure you have health insurance, and then look for a therapist or a therapy office that accepts your health insurance. In my experience, it is not easy to find a therapist that you like, that you connect with and that you trust, that also accepts your health insurance. It's not easy, but it's worth it. These habits alone are not a cure for anxiety or depression. There is no quick and easy fix, unfortunately. But I want you to know that there is hope. Your anxiety does not define you. I think the most important thing is just realizing that you can get better if you just commit to working on it for as long as it takes. Okay? Okay. I'll see you in the next video.